Hi, I'm Nina Lenton. Welcome to Creative Conversations, where I ask my guests, what does the word creativity mean to you? I am here with Adrian Ashton.
Hello.
Who has given me the challenge of describing him. And I would describe Adrian as, I would say that, well, he's a consultant who does lots of things, and he does lots of things very playfully and creatively. So I'm looking forward to hearing all about his interpretation of creativity in its many different guises and all the different things that he gets up to. So I will just hand over to Adrian for a quick introduction as to a little bit about what he's about.
Great. Thanks, Nina. And it was a bit cruel of me, dear listeners, before we came on, because I said to Nina, how would you introduce me? And maybe a bit unfair, because depending who you ask, you get a different version of who I am. That's because when I fell into kind of my enterprise, setting it up 20 years ago, I never really had a clear idea or niche about what it was. So I've ended up following the invitations. So as a result, well, let's just kind of cut to the chase. When the census form comes round, business consultant is the box that I tick.
Yeah.
But in practice, that means that I've worked with government departments, universities, national sector bodies, international firms, market traders, on all sorts of weird and wonderful issues, some of which I'm not allowed to talk about, partly because there's legal things going on, and partly because some of it is still, unfortunately, it's still too taboo to talk about in polite conversation in today's society.
Well, that sounds very intriguing. So it's a shame we won't get to hear about some of those.
Well, Nina, maybe that's a kind of a parallel podcast in the future, which is the After Hours podcast.
Yes, all the secrets, things that Adrian knows, maybe. So after that introduction, then I will ask you, what does the word creativity mean to you?
I think creativity is about finding new ways of doing things. Not for the sake of finding new ways of doing things, but finding new ways of doing things that allow you to be more comfortable and confident in how you're getting to the end goal.
Okay.
And I think that's one part. And the other part is creativity is about a mashup. So creativity is not just about going, well, you know, for example, you know, I'm building with Lego bricks, and how can I build Lego bricks differently?
Yeah.
My idea would be, how can you incorporate other materials with the Lego bricks? That's kind of real creativity starts to spike there. For example, there's a guy I know called Neil Simpson, famous for many things. If anybody who looks Neil up, you'd never guess he used to be a professional ballet dancer. Anyway,
Right.
He's recently done this kind of interesting quiz called What's Your Hidden Handbrake? Okay, so the idea is, you answer a few questions, and it's about what might be the subconscious stuff you've got in your life that's holding you back a bit, and it creates character archetypes at the end. Now, I went through it recently, and the result that came out said, oh, Adrian, you are the archetype of the caretaker.
Okay.
Now, my first thought and reaction to that wasn't, oh, okay, caretaker, that's about, you know, maintaining order, caring for other people. My first reaction was, excellent. I'm like Doctor Who adopted the character of a caretaker in a story. I'm the Doctor. So there is a kind of a whole thing. You can Google it up, folks. You know, Doctor Who caretaker. You'll see all the gifs. So that idea of, you know, taking a TV sci-fi show into a kind of psychological self-reflection tool and mashing them together, much more fun, much more enjoyable, and helps you process some of those ideas better.
Yeah. And puts your own creative lens on it as well, because I think that's the thing I've noticed from talking to all sorts of different people who are creative, and from knowing the kind of things I do myself, that everybody has a different way of thinking about things. And actually, you know, somebody might do a quiz like that and do it, you know, they do it one way, and that's a different way to do it. It's bringing someone's different viewpoint to it, isn't it?
Definitely. I think that kind of bleeds over with some of the work I do with accounts. So I work with lots of kind of entrepreneurs and businesses, and one of the things I get asked to do from time to time is help them understand their financial accounts. At which point, most people go, sorry, I fell asleep when you said the word accounts, because it's just too boring, too complicated. So my approach in helping people understand accounts is the first thing I do is I play some Talking Heads tracks.
Right.
In terms of the American rock band. And we kind of enjoy that together. And then I go, let's go back to some of the lyrics in those. And then, we do a bit of a sing-along. And I go, now that lyric, actually, if I take that lyric that you know and you're comfortable with, and I'll overlay it onto this balance sheet.
Right.
And people go, oh, I understand the balance sheet now. I suddenly get it. Because I've used the creativity of music in an unexpected way into something that people come with preconceived ideas and prejudice about, that's self-limiting. That creativity breaks those kind of barricades down a bit more easily, and suddenly our minds become up and we can do stuff we didn't think was possible.
Yeah, that's a very interesting mix up, music and talking about accounts.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that?
I'm not entirely sure, if I'm honest. I think it was one of those serendipitous moments where I was obviously putting together some training materials for a course. And then as happens from time to time, you've got the YouTube autoplay running in the background, and Once in a Lifetime by Talking Heads came on. And my brain suddenly kind of connected the bits together.
Yeah.
Now I'm aware, just as a slight confession here, listeners, I do have a slight unfair advantage in this.
Right,
okay?
So,
which is the medical profession think that people may have heard of this concept of neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
Okay? The way that we can change our thinking about things and create new neural pathways and all the rest. Which is the kind of the medical way of saying this is how you have ideas and enjoy stuff. Now, a few years ago, I had a CAT scan for something else, but the consultants got me back in and said, we're a bit confused because there's part of your brain not there. There's a bit of your brain missing where there's supposed to be. And I was like, okay, so what? I'm obviously still functioning as a vaguely passable human being. And I said, well, without this bit of your brain, you're not supposed to be able to regulate your sleep, your emotional state. You should be a psychotic or in a coma, essentially. And we can't understand how this is happening without your being on a mad amount of drugs every day.
Yeah.
So we batted it about and reflected, and what we think we came up with, which is when I hit puberty, which for those of you, if you're watching on screen, you can see my face, was a very long time ago. My brain obviously did the second flush of hormones and rewiring, and it ramped up my neuroplasticity. So what the consultants and others kind of using as a working hypothesis is my neuroplasticity rewired itself around the missing brain part to compensate. Ooh. So as a result, that kind of made me say, okay, so now I understand about why when I look at a set of accounts, I can read them easily. Why when I read company law, I can understand it in plain English, and I can explain it to people through the analogy of going to the pub.
Yeah.
People go, we know about going to the pub, we know it's involved, we know the feelings. Company law, long, boring, deadweight, technical. I go, no, actually, this bit means this. People go, oh, right. So because we find those analogies, we find those hooks, we creatively bridge kind of the two things. And I think my brain, the neuroplasticity levels, have kind of allowed me to do that as a secret insight, which maybe makes me a bit of a cheat, really. So thanks, brain, for missing a bit.
One of the things that I do, you've probably seen me talking about. I talk about creative thinking styles and the different there's 5 different creative creatures, and I'd be quite intrigued actually to know which ones of those you relate to, particularly bearing in mind your that connection bit was what sparked that thought actually, because one of those creatures is about connecting, spotting things about situations and about people and links with things that maybe other people don't see.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure, if I'm honest, Lena, and that's simply because every time I put myself through one of these kind of self-reflective tools, frameworks, tags, they're a useful kind of hook, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'm very much aware that I adapt to the situation and the circumstance. Right. I will morph a little bit. So, for example, that some people would call that masking, some people would call that performance. So, my kind of ideal resting position is on the sofa in a big comfy chair with a nice glass of wine and some really good books. But if people have seen me in action, it's very different. But again, so in the sense, and if I am going to be an animal, I guess my kind of go-to animal at the moment, I say because it changes, is probably a flamingo.
Right. Okay. And for those who are not watching this but are listening, there is a small bath duck. Flamingo
A squeaky flamingo duck, and that's because we go back to the introduction of this conversation. There is a client I've worked with who currently introduces me as being a tiger-striped chaise lounge with pink flamingo cushions. Okay, so
they're clearly a bit more creative on the spot than me, then.
But that idea of kind of going, so okay, it's a chaise lounge, but anyway, just that sense of, okay, animals can be used for an analogy. We've seen it before in different things. There's the bell bin thing in terms of what team role are you. There's the disc, what colour are you. I'm of the view that I'm always personally concerned a bit that if I say, oh, I'm the lion, I'm the owl, that's it. I'm going to start pigeonholing myself. But that's purely on me. They are a useful self-reflective tool thing, and I think that sense that we change over time.
Yeah, and I think I think the that's often the thing that people say about those kind of tools, isn't it? That there's a danger that you do pigeonhole yourself, whereas actually you can, if you use them in a self-reflective way, or maybe in a way to see what different people's preferences are in a team, for example. That's often a nice way to use something like that as well to change relationships and how you work with people.
Yeah, I think it's something about. So I've always personally been we're kind of drifting into the land of psychometrics here a little bit. Personally, I've always been highly suspicious and dubious of psychometrics.
Right.
Mainly because all of the evidence and the data and research about them completely contradicts everything we are sold about them. And all of the people who originated the original kind of Myers-Briggs types ones that people are aware of have all said very clearly these were never designed and are not suitable for recruitment or team building practices. And yet that's what HR departments use them for. Excuse me, they've become truth illusions. I think my idea with them, Nina, is they are useful. Like I say, they're useful prompts when you're bringing a group of people together as a safer way to start a conversation. So that idea of creativity makes it safer for us to explore ideas because we're doing it through play, through imagination, through analogy.
Yes, and that sort of leads us nicely on, I guess, to some of the things that you do. Because I was going to ask about some of the. I know, for example, you talk about Lego, but some of the tools that you use when you work with people.
Yes, so I'm very much a kind of I guess visuals. So again, if you're listening to this, you'll think, hang on a minute, visuals and Lego. How does this work? Because people who've worked with me know that for the last 7 or 8 years, for various reasons, 99% of all my client work is remote and virtual. I will not be in a physical room with you. So we go, how do you bring that across then? Well, we have got a thing called a post system, so I can send you Lego bricks in the post. We have this thing called share screen on most video applications as well.
Yeah.
And so it goes. So, for example, if we're working on like account numbers, then I'll use music, songs, particular lyrics. I'll also use storytelling as well as a way to kind of bridge that. So I've got a story about opening a shop and selling baked beans.
Yeah.
As a way for people to get a better handle on why when you see your accounts, you have 3 bottom line numbers. So your accounts will say your business is figure number 1, figure number 2, and figure number 3 at the end of the year. They're all different, but you need them all. But when someone says to you, what's your business worth? You go, which figure do you want to know? So, but having the story of 10 tins of baked beans kind of helps people work through that. I do stuff with planning, so business planning. Encouragingly, the Institute of Small Business and Entrepreneurship have endorsed my approach to business planning,
Right.
which starts with, why the hell would you waste your time doing one? Most of the templates are rubbish and all the rest. So I use this thing called a canvas, like a visual kind of prompt sheet. Right. So that's kind of like, create a jigsaw puzzle and fill in the colours as we go along. Somebody I worked with client I worked with years ago, was diagnosed with dyslexia. They were applying into a program, and as part of the application process, you need to submit a business plan, and it has to be the person writing it, not anyone else. And they said, I'm not going to apply for the program because I can't type, I can't write it. Even kind of speech to text software was just too much for them. So instead, what I sort of suggested, and we got the agreement, was we recorded it as a video conversation like this.
Right. Okay.
And then, because the person was a chef, it's kind of like home chefs and all the rest, what we arranged was when the panel were meeting to review the applications, they would send in trays of their food to supplement the document.
Right.
As that kind of, different formats, different things going through, which is great. And then maybe, I say, so what's that? Oh, then the other one I do circles. I have this thing called circling as well. So that's the business planning stuff.
Right.
The other one that sometimes people talk about is strategic planning. Where do you want to be in 3 years and 5 years? Yeah.
And I was going to say, strategy and planning mean different things to different people,
exactly,
don't they?
right?
Depending on who you talk to.
So I have this thing where I kind of do like a bullseye thing. It's like with ever decreasing circles, and we say, right, in the middle of the target is today, and on the outside of the target is 3 years from now, and then we'll kind of draw some lines to make some spaces.
Yeah.
And then we'll say, so in 3 years or 5 years' time, where do you want your business to be in terms of how much revenue, what your turnover is going to be? Okay, in 3 to 5 years' time, then we go around to the next one. What will that mean in terms of your number of customers? So to have that many customers, what systems and processes will you need? And then we work backwards.
Right.
So a lot of people are going to go, I can't possibly imagine how I'm going to build my business model, how I do that. So again, we just start with a nice simple squiggle on a page. And I'm a big one, that's hard.
Yeah.
If you can't do it in 3 or 4 lines, it's too complicated at all. And the other one I use as well with people in here, so this is about the startup lot. I do work as well with existing businesses and existing charities as well.
Yeah.
Community businesses and all the rest. And sometimes it's to go in and go, okay, we're doing a review, we're doing a bit of a tidy up. Now, anyone who's listening, who's been involved as a volunteer, staff or trustee in a charity or community business, anything like that, will know there are lots of things it does which are very important, very worthwhile, very meaningful, but you kind of wonder how did we end up doing them? And how do we kind of start to prioritize between them?
Yeah.
So again, I have this tool that I came across years ago called organized abandonment.
Right. That sounds quite chaotic.
Very scary sounding. And it's 2 lines. So an XY axis, so you do 1 line up, 1 line across at the bottom.
Okay.
And then you go, one of these lines is about money. How much money does it bring in? And the bottom line, or the opposing line, is your kind of your mission or your values or your soul. What's kind of making you sing the most.
Yeah.
And then you plot all of these things that you're doing in that chart according to those 2 numbers. How much money is it bringing in, and how closely does it fit with what makes us happy or what we're here to do?
Right. Okay.
And quite quickly start to go, actually, there's some stuff here that we now see isn't really that helpful for us to carry on. And then we have a conversation like with the animals and before. It's an easier way to start a conversation that otherwise might have been too awkward or tricky. So we take that creative approach again. Let's turn these ideas and things into numbers and put them on a chart. We're not playing number wang with them. It's not kind of that kind of game with it. But we're having a different perspective. Creativity gives us different perspectives to start a better conversation.
Yes. No. Well, I like that. The different perspectives, because actually, one of the things I do when I do talks about what is creativity, I ask people that question, so I get them to write down their answer about creativity on a card, and then I collect them all in. I read some of them out, and then I collect them in afterwards. So you've given loads and loads of different examples there. Before we maybe move on to a different aspect of creativity, could you tell me a bit about the props that I feel like you're quite famous for, because I see them on social media quite a bit?
Well, one of the things, so Nina, I kind of came across the years ago. So when I realised I'd be doing more online, one of my ideas was, how do you get noticed? Okay, so there's this kind of rule about networking events. Okay, what's important when you do networking isn't what you say in the room, isn't who you meet in the room, it's the follow up. Yeah, it's the after, kind of the messaging you do after. And now to do that, I thought you have to kind of have a good hook. Of all the people you meet at a conference, an event, how do you get noticed? Now, before I started doing more and more online, I always used to try and cycle, as in a bicycle, not an e-bike. This is the kids, this was e-bike. Well, once upon a time, there were no such things, okay? This is you sat there and you pedaled with your legs and then you got up a hill. So what I used to do is I used to try and cycle to events. Now, again, safety is very important. I always have my cycle helmet on.
Yeah.
Now, to make sure I'm seeing it was bright and shiny and red.
Right, okay.
Now, so when I was at the networking event, I'd always have my cycle helmet with me kind of on the outside of my shoulder bag, okay, as I'm going with.
Yeah.
And so when I did the follow-up to the events, that prop was really powerful because when I did the follow-up with people afterwards, we met at the event, I was the guy with the shiny red helmet.
Right.
Okay, so you get known for that. Now, when we moved online, and we, particularly during lockdown and all the rest, loads of networking events, and you may remember, people will remember, sometimes you come to an event and it's like 50, 25 little screens, okay?
Yes,
and you go, who were you on that list? So I hit upon this idea of going, how can you be a bit more memorable? And also, if I'm broadcasting, I'm leading a session or something, how can I make it a bit more human to go in as well?
Yeah.
So this is the idea that, so I've always had props saying, but it's the idea of how well can we blow our own trumpet in terms of getting noticed, okay? We've talked about creativity a lot. We talked about trying out new things. Trying out new things is scary and dangerous, right? So I always say to people, if you're going to try something new, experiment with it first, okay? So you design something to try. Now, if you're going to experiment, you should, of course, take precautions. Wear safety goggles, right?
Like a scientist, yeah.
Like mad scientists, right? So they're cool. The other thing as well, of course, is, you become known as certain characters, so you become your Elton John as you go through as well.
I will say for the people listening, there are various props being shared here. I may have to do some screenshots.
Yeah, if you're listening, folks, it's probably for the best in terms of.
They were great glasses, though.
Well, yeah, and the other thing was, for a few years, I was known as the freelancer with a fez.
I've seen that one quite a bit, actually. I definitely.
So
see about that.
this goes back to something that used to run every year called Micro Biz Matters Day. So Tony Robinson and the rest of the gang used to get together in the start of January every year and put on a day, like a live streaming event about celebrating micro businesses and how we support each other. And they had a rule, which was if you're going to be involved, you have to come with a hat.
Right.
Okay, now Tony's got the fedora and others had the flat caps and all the rest. And I thought, how can I stand out a bit more? Now, one of my kind of childhood favourite TV shows was Doctor Who. Got the Sonics and all the rest whenever we need to. And of course, at that time, the fez was kind of integral to the show. So I thought, I'll get a fez. And when I went to the events, I never wore the fez because everyone else wanted to try it on. So as a result, I've always tried to put it back. Now, of course, some of those props don't work so well online. For example, water pistols.
Yes, you don't get to experience water pistols.
No. So if you are at an event where I am there in person as well, one of those very rare ones, be warned that there will probably be a water pistol in place somewhere. and actually, when I've been asked to facilitate sort of in-person events as well, kind of share the and all this, one of the things I say to all the speakers or the session hosts is, this is how we're enforcing the timing with the water pistol. And I will make a public show of it. And it works. Everyone at the event loves it. All the speakers hate it because it means they've got to go and dry off their clothes afterwards. And that's probably why I don't get invited back. But again, props, it's about making it human, finding points of connection. And finding ways to express it. Yeah, exactly. There's the whole idea that we have a trumpet. Okay, those of us of a certain age will remember Record Breakers and Roy Castle always played his trumpet.
That's true.
Yeah? So there's these props, these visuals, Lego as well. Whatever it is we're using, in the kind of the name of creativity, creates more hooks with more people.
Yeah,
allows us to make more connections, allows us to remember and tap into other stuff, and that kind of surely makes life more enjoyable for the rest of us.
So that's props.
There you go.
We could probably talk about your props for the another half an hour or so, but
just to reassure people, there's one prop I will never wear. Well, so far I haven't worn on a screen.
Right.
But when it comes to Christmas time, this is your fair warning about what may or may not come out.
Yeah, so that was an elf mankini for those who are listening, not watching.
Now, if you are kind of feeling brave, if you find my TikTok channel, there is a TikTok that features the mankini unboxed.
Ooh. That's only for the brave, perhaps.
That's for the brave, yeah. That's definitely have a good a few stiff drinks first and afterwards, just in case.
So well, we can share some links at the end for people who want to go and read and watch more.
Or just be blinded for life, scarred. Yeah, nightmares.
Well, or that. So I must say, I always find it amazing how you manage to fit so much stuff in, because I seem to see you everywhere creating books and doing all these talks. Are you quite disciplined in the way you sort of manage your time? I guess perhaps you don't scroll on social media and you're a bit more organised.
Yeah, I think I have to be so over the last few years I became an unpaid carer. That's now kind of conflagrated, so I'm a sandwich carer. And if you're not sure what the phrases are, listeners can kind of Google it up now. And within that as well, because of various circumstances, it's just me in terms of being the backstop for those family members. That means that my available time to do work stuff, to do personal stuff and all, is really constrained because of supporting people access tutors, supporting people with hospital appointments and other things. Some of which can change at short notice. So one of the things that I've worked hard on, and I always encourage other people to think about, is years ago I hit upon, I stumbled across the theory of constraints.
Right.
Okay, so again, I think this is really important when it comes to creativity. So it's kind of trying to bring the segues back in. The theory of constraints. Now, this is the way that I explain this, without kind of getting too boring or professorish. Because the doctor thing in my name at the bottom, by the way, folks, in terms of when I come to constraint, it is a doctorate from a university, so I can do the academic speak, but I don't like to. Anyway, gone off track. We'll edit that bit out later. The theory of constraint, if you remember, or if you kind of look at any parent with a small child, okay, and this is the idea of actually, children are always pushing your buttons, right? Yeah. Oh, they're winding up, they wanted this, they wanted that, okay? That's because children are trying to work out, when we're at that stage of our humanness, we're trying to work out where the safe boundaries are. Okay, how far can we go? How far down the street can we go before it's too far? How late can I stay up before it's too late? How many kind of fish fingers can I put in my mouth in one go before it's too many? Yeah. Okay, because once we figure out where the limit is, we can then be more comfortable and confident about how we use the space. It becomes more creative again. Yeah. So I use this idea sometimes when I'm doing sessions. So one of the sessions that some universities and business startup programs get me in is called Marketing on a Budget. Right. And actually, it's worse than that. When people come and I reveal it, I say, right, your budget, you do have a budget, but it's the equivalent of 6 stamps. Right. So it's about £7 something now. So depending when you're listening to this, it might be £15. Anyway, 6 stamps. You've got you've got like £7, £8. That's your budget. How do you promote your business? How do you engage customers without spending more than £7 or £8? And you can't do social media or paid ads on social media. Right. Okay, at which point everyone in the room or on screen will look there going, huh? And you have this moment of, and then in very quick succession, I will see everyone's faces suddenly go, there's like a light bulb comes on in their head. Okay, so they have this kind of light bulb moment that appears for them. If you're listening, viewers, I've just kind of shown the light bulb appearing on screen. With that, so and then all of a sudden they're flying, they're away because I've given them a constraint. Yeah, you can't spend more than £7 or £8 on your promotion idea, or your research idea, or your partnership idea. All of a sudden, that unlocks so much creativity, and people start going, "Well, I could do this instead. And I could do that." The last time I ran this session, Nina, someone kind of said, "Oh, I'm going to tell me the idea," and they were going to a networking event, a conference event, the next day. And they had this idea. So what they'd done, and they posted about, I was so encouraged by them. They posted about it on social media afterwards, and, with images of them doing it. They went to the supermarket, brought a hand of bananas, bought as many bananas as they could for £8, right? And got a pen, and then on the banana wrote their business name and their website. Because what they did, what their business was about healthy nutrition and healthy lifestyle. Ah, right, okay. In the workplace, okay. So that whole idea was they went around giving out bananas to people at the event. Yeah. And everyone suddenly started talking about this person, going, "Did you get a banana from that person? Did you kind of do this? Did you see that?" So everyone was creating this buzz about them, and she'd spent very little money doing it. So it's a really fun idea of how that theory of constraint unlocks creativity. And it's the same with my time. I think there's something about saying when you kind of know this is it, you get very disciplined about what's the best use of my time. Doom scrolling, sorry, not doom scrolling, free scrolling, let's call it, let's kind of make it a bit more enjoyable, because it is, and psychologically, and I get it, it's an important way to decompress. It's an important way to kind of find mental balance, to kind of help reset your thinking sometimes. But some people, absolutely, really critical that they need half an hour of that as part of their, they're kind of managing themselves.
Yeah.
For me, it's become a case of I'll scroll through when I'm waiting for the kettle to boil. Or when I'm waiting for the kids to come out of the toilet.
Yeah.
So for me, it's that kind of in-between space. But again, it's different horses for courses. We all work out our own thing. So that's kind of that timing piece, I think. It's that focusing and that, what do I prioritize next? How do I prioritize it? At what point do I feel it's good enough to get out and then move on to the next thing? As a result, I've probably got 5 or 6 quote unquote creative projects in terms of me and my business on the go at any one time in different stages. That's because in my head, it's a case of going, right, when I've got 10 minutes is the next stage on that thing. I've got half an hour. Well, that's the next stage on that thing. I can block it out. So I'm constantly it's like a mad Tetris game in my head, kind of constantly rejuggling the blocks to kind of work it through.
Yeah. But because this is something I do. I have all sorts of ideas and all sorts of projects of my own on the go, and I talk to lots of people who have that as well. So it's actually quite interesting that you've got a handle on that and actually have a quite discipline with that, because some people you can lose hours doing things, and I think it's so I think it's interesting, and it's you clearly get you complete things
eventually
using that approach. Well, eventually, yes, but you do complete them, though.
Yeah, I think that's, so for example, I had an idea. So this 2025, this is the 20th anniversary of my business. And I wanted to kind of try and mark that in some way. So one of the ways I've done that is I've done something creative with my office toilet. So those on screen, I've just shared a Lego toilet. And I also kind of wanted to do some kind of retrospective piece. So my idea was, 20 years in business, I'll do a book, and that'd be part of this, what I do in this year. And my idea was to kind of get the book out quite early on in the year. We're now in the middle of July. The book's edging closer. There's been a few hiccups. There's been a few other things come up. It will be out. It should, current fingers crossed is it'll be August.
Yeah.
Now, I can look at it and go, oh yeah, but that's so much later than I wanted it to be, and I've missed the kind of this window for this and that window for that. What's important to me is I got it out, I got it finished.
You did it.
Finished is better than perfect or whatever, and beating myself up. And I think this is another aspect on creativity, that when we commit to these creative projects on ourselves, we can risk setting standards and expectations and goals that become a rod for our back, and they make us more upset and miserable rather than the enjoyment and the liberation. This whole thing, I have a TikTok channel, maybe once a month or a couple of times a month, I'll put some content on it. It's very haphazard and irregular, but it helps me scratch a creative itch, because it helps me think about telling a story in a different format and a different setup. Now, my idea is, as long as I do something every so often, that's okay. I'm kind of said that sense of, because at the moment, I'm in a privileged position where I'm not relying on it to generate sales or leads or traffic or inquiries. If I was, then it wouldn't be that creatively enjoyable for me. It's a creative outlet. The book was a creative outlet. So these things, I think there's that distinction in our businesses. If it's creative for our business's critical self, then we have to kind of be really disciplined with it and controlled and say, okay, we have to meet these deadlines. We've got to kind of meet these standards. If it's more about, it's creative because it's something we want to do for us, and it just so happens to be coming out through our business, we should be more relaxed and going, well, okay, well, the deadline whooshed as it went past, as all Douglas Adams's deadlines used to do, and that's fine. And I think the idea that, we look to other creatives. So, this series, these conversations, I think are really important, because hearing other people's takes, hearing other people's way of reconciling and being okay when you've missed your deadline, when it hasn't quite worked, gives you the confidence to go back and try and be creative again and keep at it.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's about picking these things up, isn't it? I mean, it's about, and I often find as well, it's about cycle. For me, it's about cycles. I don't know how that plays in as a man, actually, but certainly there are a lot of women that talk about the fact that different times, different weeks of the month, you can be more and more creative and less creative. But I think everyone probably has that to some extent, that actually sometimes you're just in the mood for creating, and you just think, oh, I've got a nice window of time today, and I've got all the ideas in my head. Right, I can write 3 or 4 interesting things that I can then, schedule for later. And then sometimes
I think there's
you don't have any at all, and and so you just go, oh, okay, I'll just go and do something else.
And that's, that sometimes you have to kind of do it. The clock's ticking, you've got to do it. And what I found, Nina, is I can be creative. I can make myself creative when I need to be. It's not as enjoyable when I'm a bit more free flowing.
Yeah.
So I think there's something about recognizing there's creative for fun and creative for, as we go through. We can pull on the muscle, and we need to do more creative for fun, which means that when we're up against the clock in our business for a client to get the bills paid, we can turn it on. We can kind of step up when we need to.
Yeah.
That idea of the cycles, I think it's interesting. So I've got to be careful how I word this, so I don't suddenly kind of have. Anyway, so there is something similar I've come across in the last few years about the lunar cycles, and a few people that I know who are now saying, again, looking at the lunar, because historically we go through history, there are models of agriculture that say, actually, if you plant according to a lunar cycle, your crops will perform differently, and all the rest. So I think there's something about patterns, ebbs and flows. There's a natural cycle to our day.
Definitely. Seasons.
Some people talk about being a morning person. Some people talk about being an evening person. And I think, my idea is that we all have a natural default setting on most things.
Yes, we do.
For example, one of my default settings is I don't like Marmite. Okay?
We'll agree to disagree on that one.
Well, this is why it's a safe thing that we're doing this on different cameras, okay? So we can't have that in-person fight. Now, that's not to say I will never not eat. Never not eat. Anyway, it's not to say if someone comes at me with a jar of Marmite, I'm going to punch them in the face or run away.
Yeah.
I can be in the same room as someone eating Marmite on toast.
Yeah.
I can, if I need to, put some in my mouth.
That's
and
great
kind of
if
follow
you don't like it.
But it's that natural kind of factory default setting. This idea, we go back to where we kind of came in, this idea of your 5 animals and all the rest. These give us a starting point to say, this is my natural preference. This is my theory of constraint.
Yes.
If I'm aware of it, I can work against it. I can colour outside the lines if I need to. And I find ways to do that. Yeah. But my preference and understanding ourselves and our creative traits, I think, is really important. So immersing ourselves in different creative pursuits. So, over the years, I've tried to do stuff with music, not that well. I'm getting better with a kazoo now. We'll see how that goes. Painting, drawing, kind of the visual arts, writing creatively.
Yeah.
So kind of, talks about me writing books. They are kind of businessy type books. They're not creative fiction. Lego free build, so architecture. And so I guess we should allow ourselves to play, to explore different facets and manifestations of creativity.
Yeah.
To kind of understand where are our natural settings. And then we know where we're most comfortable to play in, to build it. Yeah. And we also then know, well, if I want to push myself a bit, if I want to try something a bit more, what should I be signing myself up to kind of push myself to that next level?
Yeah, because by trying new things as well, you can discover things, you can accidentally discover things that you're either good at or that you just like doing. An example of that is, we probably wouldn't have been having this conversation probably 18 months ago, because I wouldn't have been recording anything like this at all, because didn't want to show up on video. So, apart from, obviously on calls, that's a bit different. But in terms of actually recording things and putting them out there, and it was only a sort of a series of events that sort of led to me going, oh, actually, maybe I'll try it. And oh, actually, yeah, that doesn't really work for me, but that kind of thing does. And for me, having conversations, it actually feels like a nice way to nice way to share information and to talk about interesting topics, and for me to kind of add some useful stuff, hopefully, here and there. And yeah, I've sort of moved away from video since then and more into doing the audios. But it means that I'm now not afraid to do a talk in person or to record something to share with people.
Part of that becomes, this whole idea of why are we doing it? So a lot of training courses that I deliver, I actually spend a lot of time at the start of them trying to get people to grapple with the topic of, why is this important to me? Why do I need to understand how to do this? Why do I need to understand what a balance sheet is?
Yeah.
Why do I need to kind of work out how to do, work out what my values are? Why do I need to understand the difference between a limited liability partnership and a community interest company? How's that going to help me? If you understand what the point is, then you can start to kind of engage with those creative options a bit more freely and easily. So I think so creativity is a means. What we also need with it is a motivation. Creativity by itself will only go so far. If we have a motivation with it, then we can harness the full potential of those creative pathways and really kind of transform stuff.
We're almost at the end of our time, actually. So have you got any links you want to share about things that are coming up, or any last profound thoughts to leave people with?
Profound thoughts. Okay, so I'm quite, in terms of if people want to kind of find out anything more about me, or the books things, or the TikTok things, or the rest, then just go on to whichever social media channel or book selling website that you may like and stick my name in. Okay, so I'm quite messy in that way. Alternatively, I have a website, adrianashton.co.uk, which most stuff is linked through in some way. But the thing I think I would encourage people to do more and feel braver to do, which is a path of creativity, is inquisitiveness and curiosity.
Right.
And what I would always encourage people to do is to ask more questions. Why are we doing it this way? Why can't we do it that way? Let's try something new. It's kind of be creative in how we approach this. Because too many times in too many businesses and charities and places, I meet people and groups who said, we're doing this because someone said that's what we should do. And they never asked why.
Yeah.
Okay. And they built their business model, their services, everything on something that's a falsehood. And as a result, it's not working properly. It's actually causing more problems than it's worth, simply because the person who said, you should try this, seemed to be knowledgeable and confident because they wore a suit or they had an impressive title or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Okay, there are out there more these things called truth illusions. There are more truth illusions than we realize. For example, anyone who tells you breakfast is the most important meal of the day is deluded. Right. Anyone who tells you it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert in something has bought into a falsehood lie. Anyone who says, bumblebees shouldn't be able to fly according to the laws of physics has been hanging out with too many drunk physicists at dinner parties. Okay, right. There are all these things out there that we take as read. We need to do this. This is the shorthand. Actually, if we dig into the reality, 5 fruit and veg a day. No, there's no scientific basis for that. It's a civil servant idea. We are building our businesses, our activities, our projects. What are we building them on? If we're building them on the advice, the guidance of other people's concepts, constructs, that's their construct. That's their understanding. You need to make it work for you. So never be afraid to push back. Always kind of say to people, what's the evidence for that?
Right.
Okay. Because my concern, Nina, is I meet so many people, so many groups, and when we dig into the evidence of what they've based everything on, it all falls apart. And it's simply, so I think, and creativity can help us feel braver in how we ask the questions. Creativity can help us feel more comfortable in the ways that we do research and we find stuff out and we ask questions. Which takes us back to where we came in about why creativity is so important for us to be doing more. Yeah.
And I mean, actually it links in, whether people are listening to this from a business perspective with a group of people, or actually as a freelancer who's working by themselves, actually quite often we end up, and I've certainly been guilty of this lots of times, and even more recently, of following things that other people say. You should be doing this and you should be doing that, and you think, it takes bravery to step away and say, no, actually I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to listen to actually what's really going on here and what's really important. And so that's...
I think, one of the ways that I've built that bravery for myself is the way that I ask for feedback from clients and collaborators and cheerleaders. So every couple of years, I do a survey and I ask people a creative question I'd ask for feedback, but I do it creatively. So in the past, I've said to people, what's my superpower? How would you introduce me at a party?
Well, I mean, there is, honestly, we're out of time, but there's so much more we could explore. But so I will just say thank you very much for being a guest on my Creative Conversations. And I will make sure that I share the links, some links where people can find you and read more.
Thank you very much, Nina. And thank you for being here. And, remember, folks, just keep asking questions and keep playing. You're never too old to play.
We'll leave it there.
Thank you for listening to Creative Conversations. I'm Nina Lenton. I'd love to know your thoughts on today's topic. You can contact me via my website at ninalenton.co.uk.